Absolutely. Here's a gripping short story based on the title We Came for Repairs, What Humanity Gave Us Defied Imagination. Written in the classic HFY, Humans Are Special, Sci-Fi style. We came for repairs, what humanity gave us defied imagination. We did not come as conquerors. We did not come as saviors. We came for repairs. Our vessel, the Varlon Ascendant, had traveled through 9 galaxies before the incident, a core failure, minor by our standards, yet critical enough to strand us near a small blue planet on the outer edge of a spiral arm. Earth, the locals called it, unregistered, underdeveloped, insignificant, according to our databases. But it was the only nearby system with the elements we needed. We expected to land, extract resources discreetly, and leave. No contact, no interference. We underestimated them. We made contact because they found us first. Their instruments were primitive, yet one of their orbital telescopes picked up our vessel's energy leak. Within days, signals flooded our receivers. Unidentified object. Are you in distress? Repeated in several languages. Out of necessity, we responded. They called themselves humans, curious, flawed, endlessly determined. Within hours of our first communication, they had engineers, scientists, linguists, and even artists reaching out to understand us, not as threats, but as guests. When we explained our damaged systems, they didn't flinch at the complexity. They asked questions. They offered tools. Their machines were crude, yet their minds danced with possibility. In less than 3 solar weeks, they had built a temporary interface between their tech and ours. Their computer scientist, a woman named Aisha, bridged a language gap we thought unbreachable by dreaming a new syntax overnight. Their metallurgists invented an alloy, on the spot, that solved our heat dissipation issue better than our own designs. And yet, it wasn't just their intellect. It was their heart. They shared food with us before they understood what we could digest. They made us laugh, an emotion our kind rarely experienced. They welcomed us into their homes, told us their stories, asked about our stars. A child gifted us a drawing, our ship, hovering above Earth, with the words "Come back soon," scrawled beneath it. When the Varlon Ascendant was ready to launch, our crew held a vote. Should we return to the core empire, as ordered? Or stay, learn, help them as they helped us? The vote was unanimous. Our people had built wonders across galaxies, cities that touched suns, machines that folded spacetime, but we had never found a species that gave so freely, not just knowledge or materials, but trust, joy, connection. Humanity gave us more than repairs. They gave us hope. Would you like this expanded into a longer story or told from a specific character's POV? Absolutely. Let's continue the story, picking up right after the alien crew decides to stay. Chapter 2, The First Link. Aisha was the first human to step aboard the Varlon Ascendant. She hesitated at the threshold, hand hovering just above the smooth, iridescent hull. It feels alive, she murmured. Our ship responded with a low, harmonic pulse, acknowledging her presence. We hadn't expected this. Her nervous system was incompatible with our neural interfaces, and yet, the ship adapted. It always had some form of rudimentary instinct, a basic AI designed to respond to Varlon lifeforms. But now, it reached for her, learned her rhythms, spoke in soft pulses, bonded. How is that possible? One of our engineers asked. I, Terran, ship liaison and exodiplomat, had no answer. Except this, because she said hello. In the days that followed, Earth's governments struggled to comprehend what had happened. Military satellites turned toward our location. Questions were asked in secret meetings, but every attempt at paranoia collapsed under humanity's own curiosity. Children wrote letters to us. Artists painted murals of our ship in orbit. Musicians composed songs that incorporated our harmonic language, somehow understanding its tone, even if not its meaning. They didn't fear us. They celebrated us. We began to trade knowledge, quietly, carefully. Their doctors were astounded by our regenerative tech, while our healers wept at their resilience despite such biological fragility. We gave them a basic med replicator. In return, they shared thousands of years of art, music, and film. I've never cried at data before, said Commander Alex after watching a film called Wall-E. Then came the threshold moment. Our quantum engineer, Velin, was working alongside a human physicist named Dr. Nikhil Rao. Together, they were calibrating a subspace node when the system misfired. A feedback loop surged through the human's workstation, fatal by any standard. We moved to stop it, to shield him, but it was Aisha who dove in. She tore open the panel with her bare hands, fused wires with metal clamps from her pocket, and rebooted the system using nothing but instinct and a fire that left us stunned. She saved him, burned, shaking, but smiling. "I had a gut feeling," she said, wincing. We studied that phrase afterward. Gut feeling, no calculation, no logic, just a human thing. It was then we truly understood, humanity's greatest power wasn't just intelligence, it was improvisation, emotion-driven risk, connection that defied protocol or probability. We didn't just stay. We began to build. Next, the gift of the archive. Do you want the story to shift into a more epic scale next, like interstellar diplomacy, galactic change, or humanity's first step into the stars with the Varlon? Perfect. Let's continue the story into the next phase, the gift of the archive. We're starting to expand the scope now, with hints of something much larger awakening. Chapter 3, The Gift of the Archive. It began with a question. "Do you have myths?" Aisha asked, her arms still bandaged from the reactor incident. She sat in our ship's observation dome, legs crossed, eyes fixed on the stars. "Stories you tell, not because they're true, but because they mean something?" We did. Of course we did. But we never thought anyone else would ask. So we shared one. The tale of the first spark, a being not of matter, nor light, but will, who wandered the void long before stars, singing to the dark until it finally sang back. From that harmony, our kind emerged. It was poetic, nonsensical, sacred. She listened without interruption, and then, quietly, she told us about Prometheus. We began to trade myths, one for one. In return for our story of the singing moons of Varesh, she shared the tale of Orpheus and Eurydice. Our fable of the echoing core was matched with the legend of Atlantis. We didn't understand how a species so young could have such ancient stories, but she only smiled. "We needed them," she said. "Before we had tech, we had stories." Velin proposed the idea, give them access to the archive. It was madness. The archive contained the accumulated knowledge of 27 civilizations, some extinct, some ascended beyond material form. It could teach them to fold gravity, to live for centuries, to manipulate reality itself. But Earth was not ready, not by our standards. Then again, we were no longer sure our standards were relevant. The archive required a host, a cognitive interface that could accept and adapt its knowledge. Typically, this meant centuries of training, physical augmentation, and genetic tuning. We watched Aisha sketch orbital diagrams on a napkin while eating a sandwich. We made our decision. She collapsed during the interface. For 12 minutes, her body convulsed under the pressure of information no human was ever meant to endure. The medical team stood frozen, torn between intervention and faith. Then, silence. Her eyes opened. "It's singing," she whispered. "It knows me." Within a week, she had mapped new equations for quantum resonance. Within a month, she had redefined their understanding of consciousness. But she didn't hoard the knowledge, she taught. By the second month, the Varlon archive was interfacing with over 100 human researchers across the globe, carefully filtered through Aisha's adaptations. We expected them to ask for weapons. They asked for clean water. And ways to heal the oceans. And how to grow food in sand. That was the moment we understood. Humanity didn't just want to survive. They wanted everyone to survive. Next, voices in the void, when the rest of the galaxy notices what Earth has become. You want me to keep going? Or want to shift perspective, maybe see things from Aisha's view now? Let's go. The galaxy is watching now. Chapter 4, Voices in the Void. The first signal came from the Norgathi. A simple transmission, pulsed through dark space relays. Varlon vessel. Confirm unauthorized dissemination of Archive Class 3 knowledge to an unranked species. We had expected this. We did not expect how fast they would respond. Within 10 cycles, 3 other empires had sent similar demands, couched in diplomatic phrasing. But the meaning was clear. You broke the rules, you gave power to children. And Earth. Earth had no idea what was coming. They noticed the sudden silence first. No more visitors. No more transmissions from our long-range probes. Even the station we'd placed on Mars had gone dark. Its systems remotely locked by interstellar regulators. A quiet quarantine. The archive remained active, and Aisha kept teaching, unaware that entire civilizations now saw her as a threat. Until the Severance beacon lit up. A brilliant spiral in the sky, only visible to those with translight optics, a symbol used only once before in galactic history. Containment imminent. We told her everything. We told all of them. About the Accord, about the classification system, about how a species must pass dozens of tests, trials, and thresholds before they were allowed access to higher technology, tests that humanity had never even been aware of. You're saying we cheated? Aisha asked. No, I replied. We're saying we let you skip the line, and now the galaxy wants to put you back in your place. She was quiet for a long time. Then she looked up and said, so let them come. It began with a fleet. 4 vessels from the Thraxi Republic, ships older than Earth's sun, bristling with weapons that could erase cities before the human eye even blinked. They demanded we stand down. They demanded Earth surrender the archive. They demanded Aisha be turned over for containment and extraction. Instead, Earth answered with a message of its own. Not a threat. A song. 1,000 human voices, singing in every known language, an ancient melody they called Dona Nobis Pacem. Grant us peace. The Thraxi hesitated. No one had ever responded to a galactic demand with music. No one had ever dared to ask for peace without submission. And no one, expected what happened next. One of the Thraxi ships broke formation. And then, transmitted a single line. They are not children. They are the Echo reborn. Something is waking in the deep reaches of the void. An ancient pattern hidden in human myth, music, and madness. The archive didn't change Aisha. It recognized her. Recognized Earth. And now, the rest of the galaxy is listening. Next, the return of the first spark. Humanity isn't just special. It might be the key to something long forgotten. Still with me? Want to push into full galactic mythos now? Or take a breath with a personal moment between characters before it escalates again? Let's dive in. Time to go mythic. Chapter 5, The Return of the First Spark. The archive called it Resonance Zero. A phrase buried in its deepest, most encrypted memory, fragmented, corrupted, feared. Even we, the Varlon, never accessed that layer. It was sealed, locked away by civilizations that no longer had names. Until Aisha opened it. Not on purpose, not by force. She simply fit. The moment she passed the threshold, the archive's core flared to life with a pulse so strong, it shook the quantum lattice of the ship. Entire subsystems crashed under the weight of the activation. Lights dimmed, gravitation warped. And in the stillness that followed, a voice spoke through her lips, not hers, not human, not Varlon. I am the echo of the spark, and I have returned. Aisha collapsed again. But this time, she didn't wake up. Her vitals were stable, her brain activity beyond measurable. Neural pathways flared with data far beyond any biological system's capacity. We placed her in stasis, but the dreams continued. We could feel them through the ship, like whispers through the hull. She was no longer just a woman. She was a conduit. The galaxy panicked. The Seer Kings of Norgathy declared Earth a Class Z threat, not to be destroyed, but sealed, isolated, studied like a plague that sings in code. The Thraxi ship that defected was destroyed in orbit by its own fleet, but its captain transmitted one last phrase before his ship fell. The spark returns in form of flesh. The fire must be born again. And suddenly, old records resurfaced. Lost texts, vanished species, ancient warnings. A prophecy that spoke of a world forgotten by the stars, where song and soul would awaken the first spark again. A world that was never meant to evolve so fast. A world like Earth. And still, Aisha slept. Until the night she woke and walked onto the bridge. Her eyes glowed gold. Her voice echoed with layers, one human, one archive, and one something else. I remember now, she said, what we were, what we lost, what I am. She turned to me, Terran, who had first welcomed her aboard, and whispered, "You were never supposed to find us." In that moment, stars across 6 galaxies began to blink in unison, not randomly, in patterns. Like language. Like a response. Next, Starborn, Aisha is no longer just human. Earth is no longer just Earth, and the galaxy must decide whether to follow the fire, or be burned by it. Want to keep rolling? Or zoom in for a more emotional moment between Aisha and Terran before the cosmic stuff explodes further? Alright, let's keep the fire lit. This is where the story shifts from revelation to decision. Chapter 6, Starborn. We watched the stars speak. 37 constellations across 6 galaxies pulsed in exact rhythmic sequence. No known civilization had the ability, or arrogance, to attempt such a display. Not even the old core worlds dared manipulate stellar patterns. But this wasn't manipulation. It was memory. Aisha stood at the center of the bridge, barefoot on the archive's interface ring. Gold light danced through her veins like living circuitry. Her voice, when she spoke, sounded like a choir whispering across time. They're responding to me, or rather, to us. I stepped forward. Who is us, Aisha? She looked at me, eyes full of warmth, and something ancient, and said, "The Starborn, the ones who came before us all." According to the newly unlocked data in the archive, the Starborn weren't a species. They were a pattern, a recurring anomaly. Across countless eons and galaxies, they appeared, always fragile, always emotional, always irrational, and always, without fail, catalysts. They united warring empires. They restarted dying stars. They collapsed tyrannies so large they spanned dimensions. And then, always, they vanished, forgotten, erased, dismissed as myth. But the archive remembered. And it recognized the pattern again in Earth, in humanity, in Aisha. Some on Earth embraced it. Some feared it. The UN called for caution. World religions fractured, some declaring Aisha a holy messenger, others calling her a false spark. Protests erupted, so did celebrations. Entire cities lit candles, not because they understood what was happening, but because they felt it. Humanity didn't need proof to believe. They needed hope. And the galaxy? The galaxy divided. The Vexary Concord proposed full galactic integration of Earth, fast-tracked through all classifications, with Aisha serving as ambassador. The Norgathy demanded her immediate termination, fearing the return of the chaos-bringing Starborn, and a dozen empires who had once ignored Earth altogether began sending ships. Then came the vision. Not a transmission, not a dream. A pulse through the archive itself. Every being connected to it, Varlon, human, and more, saw it at once. A single world, broken, burned, and in its heart, a voice repeating, "She must choose, and so must you." I found her alone in the observation dome, watching Earth slowly turn below. "Do you know what they're asking of you?" I said. She nodded. "To lead, or to disappear." "And what do you want?" She didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, "I want to set the galaxy on fire, and watch what grows in the ashes." And for the first time in Varlon history, we swore loyalty to a human. Next, the spark that leads, Aisha steps forward as more than a symbol. The first meeting of the Starborn Accord begins, and not everyone walks away. Want to keep the pace or zoom in on Aisha facing Earth's leaders? Or a scene with another alien race reacting to all this? You got it. The galaxy's holding its breath, time for Aisha to make her move. Chapter 7, The Spark That Leads. The meeting took place in low Earth orbit, aboard the Varlon Ascendant. Not out of arrogance, but necessity, the ship was the only place secure enough to host what was about to unfold. 12 delegations. 6 species. 1 human. No one bowed. But everyone listened. Aisha stood at the center of the chamber, the archive pulsing faintly at her back like a second heartbeat. She wore no armor, no crown, just a simple Earth-made flight jacket and boots, like she'd stepped out of history and into legend by accident. She didn't speak first. The Norgathy did. a towering creature of obsidian plates and molten eyes. Ambassador Karna's voice was pure contempt. You would elevate yourself above us all? You, who has not earned your place among the stars? Aisha tilted her head. No, she said, I would elevate everyone. Murmurs echoed across the chamber. The Vexari leaned forward, glass-skinned, fluid-boned, more rumor than flesh. Their speaker, a being called Ael, offered something close to curiosity. You propose a starborn accord. Define its terms. Aisha took a breath. She didn't look at the aliens. She looked at the human representatives, scientists, poets, generals, farmers, each one handpicked not for power, but for purpose. We share what we've learned, she said, the archive, the science, the mistakes. We bring it to every species still struggling, still unnoticed. We protect those who haven't yet lit their spark. And who decides what a spark is? Growled Karn. Aisha's eyes met his without fear. They do. It wasn't just revolutionary. It was heresy. The galaxy had always functioned on hierarchy, power, fear. Entire empires built their status on who could suppress the rise of others. Aisha's proposal shattered that. An open archive, a mentorship program across species, voluntary cooperation, cultural preservation, galactic unity, not enforced, but offered. Freedom. And it terrified them. Then the shots rang out. 2 Norgathi guards, rogue or ordered. It didn't matter, lunged for Aisha. Energy lances drawn. The room exploded into motion. But they never reached her. The archive flared. A wave of harmonic force threw the attackers back like paper in a storm. They hit the wall and didn't move. Aisha didn't flinch. Her voice, calm and cold. That was your one attempt. There won't be another. When silence returned, the Vexari made the first move. Ael stood. The Vexari Concord recognizes the Starborn Accord. We will contribute 1 archive node and 1 cultural envoy. Others followed, some reluctantly, some defiantly, but one by one, they stood. Except the Norgathi. They simply left. By the end of the cycle, Earth was no longer unranked. It was something new. Not an empire. Not a threat. A spark. And Aisha? She became something even rarer. An idea that walked. Next, Ashen Ascension, as the Accord spreads, resistance ignites, and the final remnants of the ancient enemy stir once more. Want to dive into the rising threat next? Or pulling closer on Aisha and the toll it's starting to take on her? Let's keep the momentum and the tension rising. Chapter 8, Ashen Ascension. The Accord spread faster than anyone predicted. Within 6 months, over a dozen fringe species, some forgotten, some hidden, emerged from isolation to join. The archive nodes were seeded across asteroid belts, oceans, hollowed moons. Knowledge once buried for eons now flowed like water. Human engineers built alongside crystalline Tevran forges. Varlon healers trained in rain-soaked jungles of Eno 5. A child from a desert world sent her first poem to a satellite school orbiting Neptune. It was working. And that terrified the old powers. The Norgathi were the first to strike. Not openly, not yet. Whispers of sabotage. Archive relays corrupted. A sun dimmed in a small system. Its colony gone silent. The message etched in the ruins was unmistakable. Spark burns. Ash remains. It wasn't just rebellion. It was warfare wrapped in prophecy. Because in the dark corners of the archive, something else had begun to stir. Something ancient. Something bitter. They called it the Null. A remnant signal, buried beneath the oldest star maps. Anti-pattern, anti-song, the opposite of the spark. It didn't build. It erased. It had no fleet, no face, just entropy, spread through data, culture, thought itself. Civilizations touched by it didn't fall. They forgot they had ever stood. It had one goal, to prevent the return of the spark. To stop Aisha. She felt it before the rest of us did. Nightmares, visions of systems turning black, of entire worlds with no memory of names, no word for hope, of archive nodes whispering to themselves until they simply stopped. She barely slept. But she didn't stop moving. I confronted her one night on the observation deck. Stars wheeled around us, Earth glowed below. Her shoulders slumped, not from weakness, but from weight. You can't carry it all, I said. She didn't answer right away. Then, if I stop, who does it fall on? The answer came 2 days later. From a boy. Not a soldier, not a diplomat. A boy on a mining colony orbiting Vecta 9, who connected to the archive and sent a message, just a single line. I want to help. I remember the stars used to sing. And just like that. Aisha smiled again. The spark wasn't hers to carry. It never was. It was meant to spread. Next, the Null War begins. The first system falls, not by force, but by forgetting, and humanity learns the price of awakening the stars. Want to go full dark next? Show the first world erased? Or maybe follow the boy from Vecta 9, see the war through innocent eyes? Let's go dark. Time to feel what's truly at stake. Chapter 9, The Null War begins. It started with silence. Not a scream, not an explosion. Just a system, Kelparis 3, going still. No signals, no heat signatures, no data. The archive node went dark without warning. When our scouts arrived, they found the planet intact, cities untouched, but the people gone. Not dead. Gone. No signs of struggle, no bodies, no decay, just absence, as if the world had never known life at all. Statues stood in public squares with no plaques. Homes had furniture, clothes, half-eaten meals, but no names. A classroom's whiteboard held a simple equation. 2+_4 The answer never came. Because the children who once knew it no longer existed. Aisha stood in the middle of the capital, alone but for the wind. This isn't war, she said softly, it's erasure. And from the dark sky above, the archive cracked. Just slightly. A glitch in its song. That night, she dreamed of the null. A shape without form, a voice without sound, a hunger that didn't consume, but unmade. It whispered to her in reverse. You were a mistake. You are the echo, not the fire. There is no spark. There never was. And in that dream, she almost believed it. But then came the boy from Vecta 9. His name was Milo. 12 years old, scrappy, brilliant. He connected to the archive node in his colony's central hub every night, learning faster than it could keep up. He heard the silence from Kelparis 3, and he remembered. He drew a star map, marked every system near the null zone. He sent one word. Next. We elevated him immediately, not because he was special, but because he was aware. That was enough now. The null wasn't a being. It was a test. Of memory, of meaning, of will. The Accord adapted. New protocols, thought anchors, emotional resonance markers embedded in data streams. Stories became armor. Names became weapons. Cultures that once sang alone began to harmonize. And at the center of it all, Aisha. Not as a savior, but as resistance embodied. The null tried to erase Kelparis 3. So Aisha sent a response. A fleet of archive nodes, broadcasting every memory, every image, every name they could recover, not to fight, but to remember them. The planet remained quiet. But the stars around it pulsed, softly, in mourning and defiance. The null had declared war. Now it would learn what happened when the galaxy refused to forget. Next, Echoes of Us, Aisha leads a mission into the edge of the null, where memory fades, and something waits to be reborn. Want to ride into the void with her? Or check in with Milo and how the war is shaping the next generation? Buckle in, time to step into the dark. Chapter 10, Echoes of Us. The null had no borders, no fleet, no demands. Only a direction, inward. We traced it to the edge of mapped space, where the archive's song grew thin, like the final breath before silence. Aisha called the mission the Descent. 5 ships, 1 purpose. Find the source, or die remembering. Milo came too. Against orders, against reason. He stowed away aboard the Kestrel 1. Tucked behind archive coils until halfway through transit. Aisha didn't send him back. She handed him a tablet and said, If we forget who we are, you remind us. He nodded once. The boy was 12. But in his eyes? He'd already lived lifetimes. The null zone was wrong. Not empty. Incomplete. Ships glitched at the edge, lights flickering. NAV systems rewiring to impossible coordinates. Our own minds fought against the pressure of unbeing. Aisha held the center. Not through force. Through story. She spoke constantly, childhood memories, poetry, Earth's songs, her mother's laugh. She forced identity into the dark, like light in a vacuum. And slowly, the dark responded. Shapes moved in the void. Fragments of lost civilizations, half-built cities floating in orbit. A cradle of ancient star steel hung above a black dwarf, still rocking gently, as if waiting for someone long gone. The null didn't destroy these things. It stored them. As if it wasn't a killer, but a gravekeeper. Then we found the sphere. A construct the size of a small moon, orbiting nothing, smooth, seamless, singing. No signal, no key, just a hum, deep, low, familiar. The same note as Aisha's heartbeat. She stepped forward, hand outstretched. We screamed for her to stop. She didn't. The moment she touched it, the sphere opened. And inside? A message. From humanity. Not Earth, not now. A message millions of years old, written in a dialect we barely recognized, stamped in genetic code and harmonic vibration. It said, "To the one who finds this, we were the spark. We chose to forget. If you've come to awaken us, you must first remember who you are." Aisha collapsed. The archive went silent. And all across the galaxy, dreams changed. Children began drawing symbols they'd never seen. Old songs twisted into new harmonies. And on a quiet moonlight street in Nairobi, a girl with no name looked up at the stars and whispered, "I remember you." Next, the ones who chose silence, the forgotten truth of humanity's ancient ascension comes to light, and not all of it is worth remembering. Want to dive into that ancient message next? Or go deeper with Milo and the spark awakening in him now? Buckle in, time to step into the dark. Chapter 10, Echoes of Us. The null had no borders, no fleet, no demands. Only a direction, inward. We traced it to the edge of mapped space, where the archive's song grew thin, like the final breath before silence. Aisha called the mission the Descent. 5 ships, 1 purpose. Find the source, or die remembering. Milo came too. Against orders, against reason. He stowed away aboard the Kestrel one, tucked behind archive coils until halfway through transit. Aisha didn't send him back. She handed him a tablet and said, "If we forget who we are, you remind us." He nodded once. The boy was 12. But in his eyes? He'd already lived lifetimes. The null zone was wrong. Not empty, incomplete. Ships glitched at the edge, lights flickering. NAV systems rewiring to impossible coordinates. Our own minds fought against the pressure of unbeing. Aisha held the center. Not through force. Through story. She spoke constantly, childhood memories, poetry, Earth's songs, her mother's laugh. She forced identity into the dark, like light in a vacuum. And slowly, the dark responded. Shapes moved in the void. Fragments of lost civilizations, half-built cities floating in orbit. A cradle of ancient star steel hung above a black dwarf, still rocking gently, as if waiting for someone long gone. The null didn't destroy these things. It stored them. As if it wasn't a killer, but a gravekeeper. Then we found the sphere. A construct the size of a small moon, orbiting nothing, smooth, seamless, singing. No signal, no key, just a hum, deep, low, familiar. The same note as Aisha's heartbeat. She stepped forward, hand outstretched. We screamed for her to stop. She didn't. The moment she touched it, the sphere opened. And inside? A message. From humanity. Not Earth, not now. A message millions of years old, written in a dialect we barely recognized, stamped in genetic code and harmonic vibration. It said, "To the one who finds this, we were the spark. We chose to forget. If you've come to awaken us, you must first remember who you are." Aisha collapsed. The archive went silent. And all across the galaxy, Dreams changed. Children began drawing symbols they'd never seen. Old songs twisted into new harmonies. And on a quiet moonlight street in Nairobi, a girl with no name looked up at the stars and whispered, "I remember you." Next, the ones who chose silence, the forgotten truth of humanity's ancient ascension comes to light, and not all of it is worth remembering. Want to dive into that ancient message next? Or go deeper with Milo and the spark awakening in him now? Let's go. The future's being written, but not everyone's holding the same pen. Chapter 12, The Rewrite. The accord changed overnight. Not with fanfare, not with war. With words. Aisha called it the rewrite, a global, galactic, multi-species initiative not just to share knowledge, but to reshape how knowledge was used. The archive would no longer be a repository of infinite power. It would be a story, living, growing, held by all. No longer a spark to burn the stars, but a light to guide them. Milo, now dubbed First Flame, led the rewrite's education arm. At 13, he taught beings older than planets how to think like poets, how to wield truth not like a sword, but like a seed. Children across dozens of worlds could now speak archive script as a second language. Hope was no longer a concept. It was a curriculum. But not all saw it that way. In the silence after the rewrite, old things stirred. They called themselves the Emberborn. A breakaway sect, human and alien alike, believers in the original spark, the unshackled, ascension-driven, world-consuming fire. To them, the rewrite was weakness. They wanted the old humanity back. The one that danced with singularities and cracked open stars just to see what was inside. Their message was simple: the fire is not to be rewritten, it is to be reclaimed. They hacked archive nodes, infected cultural repositories with recursion loops that made people forget the rewrite. Entire planetary networks were caught reliving the same day, forever waiting for a future that never came. One world fell. Then two. Then 6. Aisha responded, not with ships, but with stories. Live archive broadcasts, real-time dialogue with those affected, memory anchors embedded in music, language, touch. Across the stars, humans and Varlon and children from half-lit moons sat together and remembered who they were. One by one, the worlds came back. But it was harder each time. And then, the Emberborn found the last flame. A backup core hidden deep in Earth's crust, buried before the first recorded human word. It wasn't archive compatible. It was something older. Raw spark. Uncoded, unfiltered. Power without memory. Aisha knew what it meant. If they light it, she told Milo, they'll burn everything, again. He looked at her, fearless. Then we rewrite faster. The race had begun. One side chasing power. The other chasing understanding. And the galaxy? The galaxy was watching. Next, the last flame, beneath Earth's surface. The final legacy of the first ones waits to be lit, and only one story will survive. Want to dive into the Emberborn next? Maybe from the POV of one of them, see why they want the fire? Or ride with Aisha and Milo into the Earth core?